Hey folks, it's Steve Wilmes.
And it's Makita.
And we're here with another episode of the Risk Control Show. Today we're talking about reasonable suspicion under the D.O.T. And I just did this training yesterday, actually. And we talked a little bit about it in our, I better give a trigger warning here, in our the little video we did on the teacher up in Canada. So I wanted to just follow this up and make sure that we are talking about some of the steps that we have to do with reasonable suspicion. Some of the questions that came up, Matt, can you guess what they may have been?
Probably the first one that would occur to me is, what if I'm not certain? You know, how can I be certain?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
When can I ask to take a test? You know, how do I, do I send them home? Do I,
what if they get in their car and just drive off?
Right.
What if they say, I'm sick all of a sudden, I need to go home?
Well, yeah. What if you have your suspicions and they're leaving in their car to do company business?
Oh, that was one too.
Yep.
You must have taught this before too.
I suspect I may have touched upon this before. Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to go through this because there's quite a few little things that have to be done and kind of in the proper order. Right. So the first is you can't just take some witness, let's say they do get in a motor vehicle accident. Yeah. Some witness says, hey, I saw him throw beer cans out. Okay.
Right.
Well, is it like commercial drivers at schools where, hey, maybe they did go and pick up something at a playground and it's Monday morning and there's a bunch of beer cans there, right? Well, they shouldn't leave those on the school campus, so they throw them in their truck.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Hey, that could be reasonable. And then they are in an accident and they don't want that, so they throw them out.
Right.
Mistake. But whatever. So let's say you get that. Well, you can't just send them for testing.
Right.
You as the supervisor have to have the reasonable suspicion.
Yes.
So the first thing you have to do is
you have to actually observe them. You have to independently, basically you need to meet with them or observe them, well, preferably, and you will observe them to see.
Yeah, step by step though. Let's break this down because you're like, boom, you're going to do all that.
Yeah, you're going to do all that.
So the first thing you want to do is grab another supervisor, right?
Yes.
Because I want to make sure that I'm not making a mistake. And for people that are doing this for the first or second time, it's important to, especially if you're not really immersed, you haven't gone through a drug recognition expert course, you haven't seen a lot of drugs. For me, I worked in prisons doing drug testing. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of people like at the extreme uses of this. So that being said, get yourself a second trained supervisor. Right. We talk about reasonable suspicion. That means you have to be reasonably trained.
Of course.
You have to stay within your scope of training.
Right.
And that means grab somebody else. I'm going to grab Matt. Hey, Matt, come take a look at this guy. Come take a look at Bob and just see what you do. I'm going to have a checklist so I can go through that and mark it down. I want to make sure that I'm documenting anything that's said, anything that I see, and I want to be able to describe that. Right. So, is the guy staggering? How long did he stagger? Is it a 5-foot stagger? Is it 15 seconds worth of staggering?
Right.
Did he stagger once? Did he trip on something? What was it that he tripped on? Was it reasonable to trip on a small leaf? Or is it a 2-inch higher curb that he tripped over? Right. So we want to mark those down. Matt's going to do an observation independently.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So I'll have my own checklist. I'll be going over it. And not only will I be going over exactly what Steve was, we'll be going over the same things, but I'll be looking for visual indications just from watching them. How is this person conducting themselves? Are they doing, you'll have a familiarity with what the baseline is for this employee, how they normally act. Are they acting differently? Or then physical options, like how are their eyes? Are their pupils dilated? Right. Are they?
Are they? What's slurring? Situational awareness? We go into that too. are their pupils dilated because it's high noon and you're out in the sun?
Right.
Or are you in a dark workroom in the back, in the paint booth, and you don't have much lighting going on, and their pupils are dilated? That's a big difference.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, go through the checklist, and you're observing independently, and then we're gonna talk with each other basically and say, what do you think so far? Yeah, I think we should talk with this individual.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to go up and explain, hey, Bob, I'm sorry, but we were observing you. You seem to be exhibiting some of these symptoms of
intoxication,
of being under the influence of something. And we need to send you for testing. Right.
Yes.
And so at that point, your decision's kind of made. But I think the discussion can help. Sometimes people are tired. We had that role play yesterday as well, where someone was just tired. And, the two people that evaluated them, they came to the right conclusion, but it took a long time.
Right.
Right. And so the point being is that you have to really look at, what does he think? What do I think? If we agree, then it's good. We're going forward. If we disagree, then we have to really look at a couple other factors. That's going to be the discussion.
Right.
Hey, are they sleepy? Did they just pull an 18-hour shift? Is it at the end of the shift they've been out? When was the last time they ate? All these kind of things that are going to really play into it. So then we're going to either send them for testing. If they refuse, well, we can't just let them drive home if we have come to the conclusion that they're under the influence of something.
Correct.
Right? We can't just let them get in a car and go home. If they just say, I'm leaving, if I grab them, now I have...
that's you're open a whole new can of worms.
Now I got all kinds of other issues.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to do that either. But we need to explain, hey, if you get in the vehicle and go home, I have to call the authorities. Give them your license plate and this and that. We can send you home, but if we send you home, if you don't take the test, that is considered a positive test.
Yes.
And you have to go back to your policies. So follow the policy. That's our last step, right?
Yep.
So I think those are important to follow. I'll just pop that up there. I'm sure you've seen it, but following the policy is so important because sometimes I don't know what specifically is your policy. That should be the policy. But if you violate the policy, then it doesn't matter if they test positive or negative. You got a whole nother issue.
Well, that's another big thing when it comes to the policy is a lot of times when there's investigations after the fact about, okay, what happened here, they're going to require that you have followed the policy, because if you aren't following the set company policy, they'll be asking, why are you not following the policy?
Right.
What, have you introduced some kind of other factors? Let's say maybe you're really familiar with the employee, and maybe you're friends. Are you? If you're not following the policy, favoritism becomes
discrimination.
Exactly. If you have different standards, you're treating some employees differently than others. This is why it's really important to know your policy and follow it to the letter, so that those issues, you're not going to have those issues, or at least you're going to mitigate them.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick on this part, if the employee refuses the drug testing, you don't want to let them get in the car and take off.
No.
If they do, that's a whole nother set of issues.
Yes.
But do your best to appropriately prevent that.
Yeah.
Having a discussion, allowing them to get a ride home. Either, hey, you drive them home, you offer them an Uber, you have another coworker drive them home, whatever it may be. The last thing you want to do is have someone drive off after you've done this reasonable suspicion, knowingly letting them drive off and get into an accident, kill somebody, and now your organization is on the hook for this, right? So if they do drive off on their own, you must call and report it to the authorities, and make sure that you explain. I have a commercial driver under D.O.T. federal regulations. that has refused a reasonable suspicion test. We believe that he's under the influence of something, and they refused and got in their car and left. And here's their license plate and home address. Right? Okay. Follow your policy. That's what you have to do, though, at the end of the day. So I just wanted to touch up on that. I know I'm hoping some of you guys are out there watching, and I'll make this available directly to you. But point being is, just wanted to touch on this because it is such a sticky issue. And I know one of my colleagues called yesterday and he's like, did you see California is going to prevent us from doing drug testing on marijuana? And it's like, well, not under D.O.T. federal regs, okay?
Right.
And not in safety sensitive positions because you still can't operate heavy equipment. But we do have a real challenge there when it comes to, hey, weekend use. And marijuana stays in our system sometimes for 60 days. Yeah. You know, I mean, traces of it. It's not
it's not
impairing
really,
you, but you know, your threshold limits have to be established and all that has to be done. And gas spectrometry is very effective these days. It can be pinpoint. You have water mass that you can look at, you know, to see if it's been diluted and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot to it. But hey, if you're looking at this on the article, don't forget we got a great YouTube channel over there. It's got a bunch of stuff you can see anytime. And don't forget to subscribe so you can follow us and get more and more information. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you want any of our checklist or anything like that, hit us up. We'll send those over to you too.
Yep, absolutely, guys. Thanks for watching.